Welcome back to AP Pre-Calculus. This is day 2 of lesson 2.1, Arithmetic and Geometric Sequences. All right, let's remember that a geometric sequence that has successive terms, they have a common ratio. That means each term is being multiplied by the same number to get to the next term. Our general formula with some k's in there. So let's go to example 1 here. All right, we have a geometric sequence. We're going to start with g sub 3, and I know the rate is 10, so I'm going to go g sub n equals, I'm going to put my first term in there. That's the only term I know. I'm going to write a little note up here. This was g sub 3, and my rate is 10. The rate is always going to go in, or the ratio, if you want to. It's going to go in parentheses, and up here I'm going to do n minus k. Well, what term was g, that negative 3? It was the third term, so n minus k, n minus 3. And that is my formula for that one. All right, let's look at example 2. Let G be geometric sequence with the second term being 24, a rate of 1. So let's go ahead and write that down. G sub n, starting at 24. Remember that is G sub 2. My ratio goes there. N minus k, k was 2, so n minus 2. There's my expression. Now I want G to the 5th. So I'm just going to put a 5 there. Leave everything else there the same, 1/2. I'm going to put a 5 up there. And then when I do that math, I'm going to get G sub 5 is equal to 3. So those first couple examples were a little bit easy. They told us what the rate was. And these next couple, we're not going to know. So that's going to be the first step. We got to figure out what our rate is, right? And they don't give us a list of numbers. So we're going to have to use the formula. And we're going to use both the numbers that they give us. So let's look down here on example 3. I'm going to use the furthest number in the list first. So that's going to be 128. Doesn't mean it has to be the biggest number. It just means the furthest one in the list. And G sub 6 means it's the 6th one that we were. So I'm going to put 128 equals negative 2. Let's keep in mind that 6 is now my n and 3 is now my k. I don't know what the rate is, but 6 minus 3, right? So I'm going to do a couple steps here. I'm going to get negative 64 equals r to the 3rd. And how are we going to solve for r? Well, I could take the cube root, right? And that is definitely something that your calculator will do. You can always use, especially the newer TI-84s. If you have one of the older ones that you can't really put things in, you could do this. You could rewrite this as negative 64 to the 1/3. Just make sure that you're going to put parentheses around this when you raise it to the power. If you don't do that, your calculator might mess up a little bit. So my rate is negative 4. So my formula is G sub n equals, you can pick either one of those numbers. I'm going to pick negative 2, and then I'm going to put the ratio of negative 4. And then I'm going to do n. Well, what was negative 2 again? Oh, yeah, that was G sub 3, so minus 3. So now to find G sub 11, I can put 11 in the n, and then just do some math. And we definitely need to use our calculator for this one, because it is negative 131,072. Okay. Let's get some room for example 4 here. So let's move all of this up. All right, example 4. Let G sub n be a geometric sequence with the second number being 48, the seventh number being 1.5. Find the expression, use it to find the 11th term. So go ahead and pause the video and give it a try. All right, hopefully you did all that and you got your ratio of 1/2. Could you use 0.5? 100% you can use 0.5. So let's go ahead and put our stuff over here. G sub 11 again. You could choose whatever one you want. I'm going to use 48. And then I'm going to put 1/2 in my ratio. And then remember the 48 was minus 2. And the 11 is now my n. So I'm going to do 11 minus 2. So I'm going to do 48 times 1/2 to the 9th power. It's another one I'm not going to be able to do in my head. So let me grab my calculator real quick. And I believe we get 3/32. All right, that ends this lesson.